The ship shook violently as another blast hit the hull. Tejo gripped the controls with both hands, his knuckles turning white. Red warning lights flashed across every screen in the cockpit. The pirate vessels had appeared from nowhere, and now his small survey ship was falling apart around him. Come on, he muttered, pushing the engines to their limit. The planet below grew larger in his view. It was covered in thick forests that glowed with strange purple and blue lights. He had no choice. Landing there was his only chance. The pirates fired one more shot. Tejo's ship lurched to the side as the main engine exploded. Smoke filled the cabin. The controls went dead in his hands. He was falling now, spinning through the atmosphere like a leaf in a storm. His hands moved quickly across the emergency panel, trying to activate the crash systems. The safety harness locked tight across his chest, just as the ship hit the first layer of trees. Branches and leaves smashed against the windows. The sound of tearing metal screamed in his ears. The ship tumbled and rolled, breaking through layer after layer of forest. Then, everything went dark. When Tejo opened his eyes, pain shot through his left arm and ribs. He coughed, tasting blood. Smoke drifted through the broken cockpit. Through the shattered window, he could see trees unlike anything on Earth. They were massive, with trunks as wide as buildings. Their bark glowed softly with blue light, and strange vines hung down like curtains. The air smelled sweet and sharp at the same time. He unbuckled the harness with his good hand and stumbled out of the wreckage. His suit was torn in several places, and his emergency beacon was completely smashed. The medical kit in his belt was intact. He pulled out a spray and applied it to his wounds. The pain dulled slightly. Tejo looked around. The forest was beautiful, but alien. Insects that looked like floating crystals drifted between the trees. Flowers the size of his head opened and closed slowly, releasing puffs of golden dust. In the distance, he heard sounds he couldn't identify. Some were like bird calls, others like growls. He needed to find shelter and water. The ship was too damaged to provide either. As he took his first step away from the crash site, he heard something else. Footsteps, many of them. They moved through the forest with barely a sound. Tejo turned slowly. His heart began to race. Figures emerged from behind the glowing trees. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. They stood tall, with skin that shimmered like pearl. Their eyes were large and completely silver, with no visible pupils. They wore armor made from what looked like living plants, pieces that seemed to grow and shift on their bodies. Each one carried a weapon, a curved blade that glowed with the same blue light as the trees. What shocked Tejo most was that they were all female. Every single one of them. Their features were elegant and sharp, their movements graceful but deadly. They surrounded him in seconds, weapons pointed at his chest. The one in front stepped closer. She was taller than the others, with long dark hair that seemed to move on its own. Her armor was more elaborate, marked with symbols he didn't recognize. Her silver eyes studied him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Please," Tejo said, raising his good hand. "I don't mean any harm. My ship crashed. I'm just trying to survive." The leader tilted her head. She said something in a language that sounded like music mixed with wind chimes. Tejo's translator tried to work, but it was too damaged. Only broken words came through. Demon. Forest. Corruption. The other warriors exchanged worried glances. One of them, younger with short hair, stepped back and raised her weapon higher. Another, with kind eyes and careful movements, looked at Tejo with what might have been concern. The leader spoke again, her voice commanding. She pointed at Tejo, and then at his ship. She made a gesture, and two warriors moved forward. They grabbed his arms, ignoring his grunt of pain from the injured one. They were strong, much stronger than they looked. "Wait. Please," Tejo tried to explain. "I'm human. From Earth. I'm not your enemy. 1410. I'm Force C." But the translator only produced static and broken sounds. The leader's expression remained hard. She gave an order. and the warriors began to march Teho away from his ship, deeper into the glowing forest. As they walked, Teho tried to understand what was happening. These beings had clearly never seen a human before. They were organized and skilled, moving through their forest like they owned every part of it. The way they looked at him, with fear and anger, told him they thought he was something dangerous. The forest grew denser as they traveled. The trees became even larger, their trunks so wide that 10 people holding hands couldn't circle them. The ground beneath his feet was soft with moss that glowed gently with each step. Creatures watched from the branches above, eyes reflecting the blue light. After what felt like hours, the forest opened up. Teho's breath caught in his throat. Before him stood a city unlike anything he had ever seen. It was built into the trees themselves. Platforms and buildings grew from the branches, connected by bridges made of living vines. Structures spiraled up the massive trunks, carved from the wood but still alive and growing. Lights shimmered everywhere, some from the trees, some from lanterns filled with glowing insects. Hundreds of the female aliens stopped what they were doing to stare at him. Workers paused in harvesting fruit from hanging gardens. Warriors training on platforms froze mid-movement. Children playing on lower branches fell silent. The fear in their eyes was clear. Some made gestures that looked like prayers or wards against evil. The leader and her warriors marched Teho through the city. They took him up a winding path that climbed the largest tree in the center of the settlement. The trunk was so wide that small buildings were carved into its sides. As they climbed higher, Teho could see the entire forest spreading out below, glowing like a sea of stars. At the top of the tree was a chamber. Its walls were the living wood of the tree itself, carved with intricate patterns that seemed to tell stories. Soft, purple light pulsed through the wood like a heartbeat. A circle of older females sat on raised platforms. They wore robes instead of armor, and their silver eyes held wisdom and power. In the center, on the highest platform, sat an ancient female. Her hair was long and white, flowing down her back like water. Despite her age, her back was straight, and her gaze was sharp. She looked at Teho with an intensity that made him want to step back. The leader of the warriors knelt before the Ancient One. She spoke quickly in their musical language, gesturing at Teho, and then back toward the forest. The Ancient One listened without expression. When the warrior finished, silence filled the chamber. All eyes turned to Teho. He stood there, injured, dirty, and alone. Light years from home, surrounded by beings who saw him as a monster. The Ancient One rose slowly from her seat. She walked down the steps until she stood directly in front of him. She was shorter than him, but her presence made her seem much larger. She reached out one hand and placed it on his chest, right over his heart. Her eyes widened slightly. She spoke one word that somehow the broken translator caught. Impossible. The Ancient One stepped back, her hand still trembling slightly from touching Teho's chest. She turned to face the circle of elders, her white hair swirling behind her. She spoke rapidly in their language, and Teho could see shock spreading across the faces of the council members. The chamber erupted in voices. Some of the elders stood from their seats, arguing with each other. The warrior leader, still kneeling, looked confused. More aliens had gathered at the entrance to watch. Their whispers filled the air like wind through leaves. Teho tried again to make his translator work. He tapped the side of his helmet, and it crackled to life for a moment. Broken words came through. Old legends. The other half. Impossible. Dangerous. Curse the forest. The Ancient One raised her hand, and silence fell immediately. She had absolute authority here. That much was clear. She looked at Teho again, her silver eyes studying every detail of his face, his body, his differences from her people. She spoke slowly, and this time the translator caught more words. What are you? Where? From? Teho took a careful breath. He needed to make them understand. I am human. My name is Teho. I come from a planet called Earth. It's very far from here. My ship was attacked. I didn't choose to crash in your forest. I mean, you no harm. The translator struggled to convert his words into their language. Whatever came out made several elders gasp. One of them, a female with scars across her arms, stood up angrily. She pointed at Taeho and shouted something. The translator picked up, "Abomination. Destroy. Protect our people." But another elder stood as well. She was younger than most of the council, with curious eyes and hands stained with what looked like ink. She held up an old book, its pages made from pressed leaves. She spoke quickly, flipping through the pages and pointing at symbols and drawings. The scarred elder argued back, but the younger one was insistent. She showed the book to the ancient one, pointing at a specific page. Taeho couldn't see what was written there, but whatever it was made the ancient one go very still. The warrior leader finally spoke. She stood and approached the ancient one, bowing deeply. "Elder Mirai, what should we do with the creature? Is it truly what Scholar Sora suggests?" So now Taeho had names. The ancient one was Mirai, the leader of this people. The younger elder was Sora, some kind of scholar. The warrior leader was still unnamed to him, but she commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Mirai closed the book slowly. She turned to face the full council and the crowd that had gathered. When she spoke, her voice carried through the entire chamber. Our ancestors wrote of a time before the Great Separation, a time when our people were not whole as we are now. The old texts speak of another form, a male form, that lived alongside our mothers. These males were different in body and mind. Some texts say they brought balance. Others say they brought chaos and war. That is why our mothers chose to separate, to become whole without them. The crowd murmured. Taeho felt his heart sink. They thought he was some kind of monster from their past. Mirai continued. This creature claims to be from another world. It has the signs the old texts describe. The deeper voice, the different body structure, the presence that our sensors detected. She paused. But we cannot know if it speaks truth. We cannot know if it brings danger to our forest and our people. The scarred elder spoke up. Then we should end it now, before it can cause harm. Our mothers separated from the males for good reason. They brought violence and destruction. This thing will do the same. We do not know that, Sora said firmly. She held up the book again. The texts also speak of male beings who built great things, who protected, who created. Not all the stories are dark, Counselor Bora. We have only heard the warnings passed down. But there were other tales that were lost. Bora's eyes flashed. Lost because they were lies, or too dangerous to remember. Scholar Sora, you are young. You did not live through the teachings as we did. Males are chaos. This is our truth. The warrior leader stepped forward. Her voice was strong and clear. Elder Mirai, I am Yura, Master Hunter of the Third Guard. I found this creature at the crash site. It was injured and alone. It made no move to attack, even when surrounded. It tried to speak, to explain. Perhaps we should learn more before we decide its fate. Taeho felt a small spark of hope. This Yura, despite her cold exterior, was being fair. Mirai nodded slowly. Yura speaks wisdom. We are not a people who kill without understanding. But neither can we risk our safety on trust alone. She turned to look directly at Taeho. Creature called Taeho, you will be held here for the period of 3 moon cycles. In that time, we will observe you. We will question you. If you prove to be truthful and safe, we will consider releasing you. If you prove dangerous, we will do what we must to protect our people. Do you understand? The translator worked well enough to convey her meaning. Taeho nodded quickly. Yes, I understand. Thank you for giving me a chance. I promise I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want to survive and eventually get home. Mirai gestured to Yura. The creature will be your responsibility. Master Hunter. Guard it well. Let Scholar Sora study it. But safely. Provide it with basic needs. But it is not to roam freely. If it attempts escape or violence, you have permission to end it. Yura bowed deeply. Yes, Elder Mirai. It will be done. Two warriors came forward and took hold of Taeho's arms again. Yura led them out of the council chamber and down through the tree city. The crowd parted as they passed, everyone staring at Taeho with fear, curiosity, or anger. Some made those same warding gestures. Others simply stared with wide silver eyes. They took him to a small structure built into the side of a medium-sized tree. It was simple, but clean. There was a sleeping platform covered in soft moss, a basin of water, and a small opening that served as a window. The door was made of the same living wood as everything else, and it sealed shut with a sound like growing plants. Yura remained outside while her two warriors left. Through the small window in the door, Taeho could see her face. For a moment, neither spoke. "Thank you," Taeho finally said, "for speaking up in there, for being fair." Yura's expression didn't change. "Do not mistake my words for friendship. Creature. I spoke because I believe in justice and truth. But I also believe you are dangerous. Every instinct I have, every lesson I was taught, tells me that males bring destruction. You may seem calm now, but that could change. I will be watching you every moment." "I understand," Taeho said quietly. "For what it's worth, where I come from, males and females live together. We work together. We're not perfect, but we're not monsters either. We're just people trying to survive, like anyone else." Yura stared at him for a long moment. "That is what the old texts claimed too. Just before everything fell apart." She turned away. "Rest now. Tomorrow, Scholar Sora will come to question you. Answer her honestly. It may be the only thing that saves your life." She walked away, leaving Taeho alone in the small room. He sat down on the sleeping platform, his body aching from his injuries and the long walk. Through the window, he could see the glowing forest stretching endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, his broken ship held his only hope of calling for rescue. But for now, he was a prisoner among people who saw him as a legendary monster come to life. Taeho lay back on the moss. It was surprisingly comfortable, adjusting to his body shape. He stared up at the living wood ceiling, watching the soft blue light pulse like a heartbeat. He thought about home, about Earth, about whether he would ever see it again. His last thought before exhaustion took him was that he had 3 moon cycles to prove he was worth keeping alive. 3 moon cycles to show these people that humans were more than the monsters from their stories. Outside, unknown to him, Sora was already preparing her questions, and Yura stood guard at his door, her hand never far from her weapon, her eyes watching the forest for any sign of danger. The night deepened around them, and the forest sang its strange songs. The first light of morning came through Taeho's window as a soft purple glow. He woke to the sound of the door opening. Sora stepped inside, carrying an armful of books and strange instruments. Behind her, Yura watched from the doorway, her hand resting on her blade. "Good morning," Sora said. The translator in Taeho's damaged suit worked better now, perhaps adjusted to their language overnight. "I am Scholar Sora. I have many questions for you." Taeho sat up slowly, his ribs still aching. "I'll answer anything I can." For hours, Sora asked questions about Earth, about humans, about his biology and culture. She took notes on thin sheets made from leaves, her handwriting flowing like art. She was fascinated by everything. How humans needed both males and females to reproduce, how they had built cities and ships to travel between stars, how their societies worked with both genders living together. "It sounds like chaos," Sora said. But her tone was curious rather than judgmental. "How do you keep peace when you are so different from each other?" Taeho smiled. "It's not always peaceful. We argue and disagree. But we also love and support each other. The differences make us stronger, not weaker. Different perspectives help us solve problems in new ways." Sora wrote this down carefully. The old texts hinted at this, but most of that knowledge was lost or destroyed. Our people have lived without males for thousands of years. We have forgotten what it was like. Over the next few days, Sora visited regularly. Taeho was allowed to walk around a small area of the settlement under guard. The people still feared him, but some were starting to watch with curiosity instead of just terror. Children would peek at him from behind their mothers before being pulled away. Yura remained cold and distant. She never spoke more than necessary. But Teho noticed she listened carefully whenever he talked with Sora. Once, he caught her looking thoughtful after he explained how human males helped protect and care for their families. On the 5th day, everything changed. Teho woke to shouting and the sound of running feet. Through his window, he could see people rushing toward the western edge of the settlement. Yura appeared at his door, her face tight with worry. "Come with me," she ordered. "Stay close and do not try anything." She led him through the settlement to where a crowd had gathered. They were looking down at a section of forest below the tree city. Even from this distance, Teho could see something was wrong. A large area of trees had turned gray and black. The glowing lights in their bark were dead. The plants around them were withered and dying. Elder Mireille was there with other council members. Healers and plant experts were climbing down to examine the damage. Teho heard them reporting back. The blight was spreading fast. It was killing everything it touched. Their usual remedies weren't working. "This is bad," Sora whispered beside him. She had appeared in the crowd. "Those trees feed half our people. If the blight spreads to the rest of the forest, we could starve." Teho watched the healers working below. They were applying pastes and liquids to the infected trees, but nothing seemed to help. The gray spread slowly but steadily, like a stain in water. "Can I see it?" Teho asked suddenly. "Up close?" Yura turned to him sharply. "Why?" "On Earth, I studied planetary biology before I became a pilot. I might be able to help. At least, I could look at it with my equipment. My scanner might see things your eyes can't." Yura looked at Elder Mireille. The old leader studied Teho for a long moment, then nodded once. "Let him try. We have nothing to lose." Yura led Teho down to the infected area with 4 guards surrounding them. As they got closer, Teho could smell something wrong. It was sharp and metallic, not like any plant disease he'd seen. His suit's scanner was damaged, but the basic analysis functions still worked. He knelt beside one of the dying trees, running the scanner over the gray patches on its bark. The device beeped and displayed information on its cracked screen. Teho's eyes widened. "This isn't a normal fungus or disease," he said. "It's silicon-based, not carbon-based like most life. That's why your organic treatments don't work. It's almost like rust spreading through metal, but for living things." Sora, who had followed them down, leaned closer. "Silicon-based? I have read of such things in the ancient texts, but never seen one. How do we stop it?" Teho thought hard. "My ship had emergency supplies, chemicals for sterilizing equipment and purifying water. If I combine those with some of the local plants that have high acid content, I might be able to create something that disrupts the silicon bonds without killing the trees." Yura frowned. "You want us to take you to your ship, so you can escape?" "I want to help save your forest," Teho said, meeting her eyes. "You can send 20 guards with me if you want. I'm not going to run. Where would I go? But I need those supplies, and I need them fast before this spreads further." Another moment of silent communication passed between Yura and Elder Mireille, who had descended to observe. Finally, Mireille nodded. It took an hour to reach the crash site with a full escort. Teho's ship looked even worse in daylight. He climbed carefully through the wreckage, pulling out containers from the emergency storage. The guards watched his every move, weapons ready. Back at the blight site, Teho worked quickly. He mixed chemicals from his ship with crushed roots that Sora helped him identify. The healers watched skeptically but didn't interfere. Teho tested the mixture on a small patch of infected bark. The gray began to recede. Slowly at first, then faster. The black stain pulled back like it was being burned away. Underneath, the tree's bark was pale, but alive. Its natural glow flickered weakly, then grew stronger. Gasps rose from the watching crowd. Sora grabbed Teho's arm excitedly. "It works! How did you know?" "Different perspective," Teho said with a tired smile. "You're used to organic solutions because your world is all organic. Where I come from, we deal with many different types of chemistry. Silicon-based life is rare, but not unknown to us. For the next 3 days, Taeho barely slept. He worked from dawn until long after dark, mixing more of his treatment and teaching the healers how to apply it. Yura and her warriors helped, following his instructions exactly. Slowly, section by section, they pushed the blight back. The work was exhausting. Taeho's injuries hadn't fully healed, and the physical labor made them ache. But he didn't stop. He saw how important this was to these people. This forest wasn't just their home. It was sacred to them, part of their identity. On the third night, as Taeho was preparing another batch of treatment, Yura approached him. She had been working beside him all day, carrying supplies and helping apply the mixture to high branches. Her armor was stained with the chemicals and plant matter. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken to him without coldness in her voice. Taeho looked up at her, exhaustion written on his face. "Yes, I did. Not because I'm your prisoner, but because it's the right thing to do. Where I come from, we believe in helping others when they need it. Even if they're different from us. Even if they don't trust us yet." And Yura was silent for a long moment. "I watched you these past days. You could have worked slowly, saved your strength, but you drove yourself until you could barely stand. Why? Because every hour I delayed, more of your forest would die. More of your people would be at risk. I couldn't live with that." Taeho mixed another batch of treatment. "I know you see me as a monster from your legends, but I'm just a person, Yura. A person who wants to help." Something shifted in Yura's expression. The hard suspicion that had been there since they met began to soften. The old texts said males were selfish, that they took and destroyed, but you have given everything these past days, asking nothing in return. "Maybe the old texts were wrong," Taeho suggested gently. "Or maybe they were written by people who only knew certain males. Not all of them. Just like I'm sure not all of your people are the same. Some are warriors like you. Some are scholars like Sora. People are individuals." Yura nodded slowly, as if accepting a new truth. "Perhaps you are right. I am sorry for how I treated you before. I was afraid. Fear made me cruel." "You were protecting your people," Taeho said. "I understand that, and I don't blame you for it." The next morning, they applied the last of the treatment to the final infected area. By midday, the blight was completely gone. The trees were weak but recovering. Their lights flickered back to life one by one. The forest would need time to fully heal, but it would survive. The entire settlement gathered to see the saved forest. Elder Mire stood beside Taeho on a high platform, addressing her people. "This human, Taeho, has saved our sacred forest. He worked without rest, giving his knowledge and strength freely. He has shown us that perhaps the old legends do not tell the complete truth. Perhaps there is more to learn about the universe and the beings in it." The crowd was quiet, but Taeho saw their expressions changing. The fear was still there, but now, mixed with respect and curiosity. Some even looked at him with something like gratitude. That evening, as Taeho finally rested in his room, Sora visited him. She brought food and clean water. "The council is meeting tomorrow to discuss your status. After what you have done, I believe they will vote to give you more freedom, perhaps even full acceptance, in time." "I hope so," Taeho said. "I still need to find a way to repair my beacon. To call for rescue." "We will help you," Sora said with a smile. "You have helped us. It is only fair." After she left, Taeho lay back on his sleeping platform and looked out at the glowing forest. For the first time since his crash, he felt hope. 2 weeks had passed since Taeho saved the forest. His status in the settlement had changed completely. He was no longer locked in his room. The guards still followed him, but at a distance. People nodded to him as he passed. Some even smiled. Children no longer hid when they saw him, though they still stared with wide silver eyes. Yura had become something close to a friend. She sparred with him in the training grounds, teaching him about their fighting styles while learning about human combat techniques. She was fascinated by concepts like leverage and momentum that humans used differently than her people. Sora spent hours with him every day, sharing knowledge. She showed him maps of the forest and taught him about the creatures that lived there. In return, he told her about Earth's animals and plants. They had started working together on repairing his beacon, combining her people's biotechnology with his mechanical knowledge. A young warrior named Ari had also become friendly. She was barely into adulthood, eager and curious about everything. She asked Taeho endless questions about space travel and other worlds. She dreamed of one day seeing the stars beyond her forest home. It was Ari who was with Taeho that afternoon when everything went wrong. They were in the lower gardens, where food plants grew on carefully tended platforms. Taeho was helping repair an irrigation system that had broken. Ari was supposed to be standing guard, but mostly she was asking questions about Earth's oceans. "Is it true that water covers most of your world?" she asked, her eyes bright with wonder. "I cannot imagine so much water in one place." Taeho smiled as he adjusted a pipe made from hollow vine. "It's true. Vast oceans that stretch farther than you can see, and creatures living in the depths that are bigger than your largest trees." Ari was about to ask another question when she froze. Her head snapped toward the forest. Her hand went to her weapon. "Did you hear that?" Taeho listened. At first, there was only the normal sound of the forest. Then he heard it. A low rumble, like distant thunder. But somehow wrong. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What is it?" he asked. Ari's face had gone pale. "Get to the upper levels, now. Run." But before they could move, the creature appeared. It emerged from the forest so smoothly that Taeho almost missed it. One moment there was empty air. The next, a massive shape materialized like smoke, becoming solid. The beast was enormous, easily twice the height of a human. It had 6 legs, each ending in claws as long as Taeho's forearm. Its body was covered in scales that shifted color, matching the forest around it perfectly. The head was all teeth and hunger, with 4 eyes that glowed red in the dim light. When it opened its mouth, the rumbling sound came out, shaking the air itself. "Vexcore," Ari whispered in terror. "We have to warn the settlement." She raised a horn to her lips and blew. The sound cut through the forest like a knife. Immediately, answering calls came from above. Warning bells began to ring throughout the tree city. The Vexcore's head swiveled toward the sound. Its body rippled as it moved, the camouflage shifting perfectly with each step. It was heading straight for the settlement. Straight for them. Ari pushed Taeho behind her. "Stay back," she ordered, drawing her blade. The weapon glowed bright blue, but against the massive predator, it looked like a toy. Warriors began descending from the upper levels. Yura was among the first, her face set in determined lines. She saw the Vexcore and her expression turned grim. "Defensive formation. Protect the civilians. Get the children to the highest levels." 20 warriors spread out, forming a line between the creature and the settlement. The Vexcore watched them with its 4 red eyes. It seemed to be calculating, thinking. Then it charged. The battle was chaos. The warriors' blades could barely scratch the creature's scales. Its camouflage made it nearly impossible to track. One moment it was in front of them, the next it had somehow moved behind. Its claws lashed out, sending warriors flying. Its tail swept like a club, knocking down 3 fighters at once. Yura fought with incredible skill, dodging the creature's attacks and striking at its joints where the armor was weakest. But even she couldn't do much damage. The Vexcore was too strong, too fast, too well protected. Then disaster struck. The creature's tail smashed into a support structure. Part of the garden platform cracked and collapsed. Ari, who had been fighting near the edge, fell with the debris. She landed badly on the ground below, trapped under a fallen beam. The Vexcore noticed her immediately. Injured prey was easy prey. It turned away from the warriors and moved toward Ari with terrifying speed. Taeho didn't think. He just moved. He grabbed a piece of broken equipment from the irrigation system and ran. His suit still had some power left. He activated the emergency flare function. Bright white light exploded from his chest piece, as bright as the sun. The Vex core stopped, its eyes hurt by the sudden brilliance. It turned toward Taeho, growling. Taeho ran at it, screaming to keep its attention. He threw the equipment piece. It bounced off the creature's scales harmlessly. But it worked. The Vex core forgot about Ari. It focused entirely on this new, loud threat. Taeho, no. Yura's voice cut through the chaos. But it was too late. Taeho was already in the creature's reach. The Vex's core struck. Its claw came down like a hammer. Taeho rolled to the side, barely avoiding being crushed. The claw dug deep into the ground where he had been standing. He came up running, leading the creature away from Ari, away from the settlement. His mind raced. He had studied the reports Sora had shown him. Vex core had excellent camouflage, but sensitive eyes. They hunted by sight, not smell. They were reptilian, which meant they might be sensitive to temperature. Fire. He needed fire. Taeho ran toward the wreckage of his ship. It wasn't far, maybe 200 meters. But with the Vex core chasing him, it felt like miles. He could hear the creature behind him, feel the ground shake with each step of its 6 legs. The warriors were running too, trying to catch up. Yura was in the lead, moving faster than Taeho thought possible. But the Vex's core was faster still. Taeho reached his ship and dove through the torn hull. The creature tried to follow but was too large. Its head and front legs pushed through the opening, snapping at Taeho. He scrambled to the emergency locker and pulled out what he needed. Fuel cells. Ignition torch. A container of adhesive foam. The Vex core's claw raked across his back. His suit protected him, but he felt the impact. He spun around and sprayed the adhesive foam directly at the creature's eyes. The Vex's core roared and pulled back, shaking its head. Taeho climbed out through another hole in the ship. His hands shook as he set up the fuel cells in a circle. The ignition torch sparked to life. He had one chance at this. The Vex core cleared its eyes and charged again. Taeho stood his ground, torch in hand. When the creature was almost on top of him, he touched the torch to the fuel cells. Fire exploded in a ring around him. The Vex core's camouflage couldn't adapt to the sudden heat and light. It appeared fully visible for the first time, its scales reflecting the orange flames. The creature roared in confusion and pain, backing away from the fire. That's when Yura and her warriors struck. With the creature visible and distracted, their blades found their marks. They hit the joints, the eyes, the soft tissue under the jaw. The Vex core thrashed and fought, but now it was outmatched. Yura's blade found the creature's throat. The Vex core shuddered and collapsed, the red light fading from its eyes. It was over. Taeho sank to his knees, exhaustion and adrenaline crashing through him. The fire was dying out around him. Yura ran to him, her face a mixture of anger and relief. "You idiot!" she shouted. "You could have been killed. You have no armor, no proper weapon, no training for this." Ari was in danger, Taeho said simply. "I couldn't just watch." Yura stared at him. Then, to his surprise, she pulled him to his feet and into a brief, hard embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved her life. You saved all of us." The other warriors had gone to rescue Ari. They pulled the beam off her and carried her up to the healers. Her leg was broken, but she would survive. When she saw Taeho, she smiled weakly. That evening, the entire settlement gathered. Elder Mireille stood before them with Taeho at her side. His suit was torn, and his body was bruised. But he stood tall. "Today, this human risked his life for one of our young warriors," Mireille announced. "He showed courage, intelligence, and selflessness. He used methods we never considered. Fire, which we fear, he made into a weapon. Light, which we cherish, he made into a shield. He is different from us, yes, But those differences made him strong when we needed strength. She turned to Taeho. The trial period is over. The council has voted. You are no longer a prisoner. You are a guest of our people, a friend to our tribe. We ask your forgiveness for our fear and our harshness. Taeho bowed respectfully. There's nothing to forgive. You protected your people, as you should. I only hope I can continue to prove worthy of your trust. The crowd erupted in cheers. Not everyone, but most. Taeho saw acceptance in their silver eyes. He saw respect. He saw hope that maybe, just maybe, the old stories were wrong, that males weren't monsters, that different didn't mean dangerous. Later, as healers tended to his wounds, Sora came to sit beside him. You know, she said thoughtfully. The old texts spoke of males as warriors and protectors. I always thought that meant violent and aggressive. But watching you today, I understand differently now. You protected because you cared. You fought because someone needed help. That's what a true warrior is. Taeho smiled tiredly. In my world, we say that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right, even when you're afraid. I was terrified today, but I couldn't let Ari die. You are a good person, Taeho of Earth, Sora said softly. I am glad you crashed in our forest. Even though I know you wish to go home. I do miss home, Taeho admitted. But I'm glad I met all of you too. You've taught me so much. As night fell over the glowing forest, Taeho looked up at the unfamiliar stars and thought about what tomorrow might bring. The weeks following the Vexcore attack changed everything. Taeho was given his own dwelling in the Tree City. A small but comfortable room with a view of the entire forest. He ate meals with the community. He trained with the warriors. He studied with the scholars. The children no longer feared him. They would gather around when he told stories about Earth and space travel. Ari recovered quickly, her leg healing with the help of the tribe's advanced medicine. She declared herself Taeho's friend and appointed herself as his guide to all things Liray. Through her, he learned their customs, their history, their dreams for the future. But Taeho never forgot that he needed to go home. Every day, he and Sora worked on repairing his emergency beacon. They had made good progress, combining the Lyray's biotechnology with his ship's salvaged electronics. The beacon was almost ready. One morning, Sora arrived at their workshop with unusual excitement in her eyes. I've been thinking, she said. When your beacon calls your people, what will happen? Taeho had been thinking about this too. A rescue ship will come. They'll take me home. And what about us? Sora asked quietly. What happens to my people when the universe learns we exist? The question hung in the air. Taeho put down the tool he was holding. That depends on you. On your people. On what you want. Explain, Sora said, sitting down across from him. Taeho chose his words carefully. The human coalition has laws about first contact. When we discover a new intelligent species, we can't just take what we want or impose our ways. We have to respect their sovereignty and their choices. Your people can remain isolated if you wish, or you can open relations, trade knowledge, learn about the galaxy. It's entirely your decision. Sora was quiet for a long moment. For thousands of years, we have hidden in this forest. We believed we were complete, needing nothing from outside. But you have shown us differently. Your knowledge saved our forest. Your courage saved our people. What else is out there that we've been missing? A lot. Taeho admitted. Good things and bad things. Wonders and dangers. Friendship and conflict. The universe is big and complicated. I think, Sora said slowly, that we need to discuss this with the council. Will you come with me? The council chamber was full. Elder Mirai had called not just the council, but also representatives from every part of their society. Warriors, healers, farmers, artists, teachers, everyone had a voice in this decision. Taeho stood before them, nervous but honest. He explained what first contact meant. He told them about the coalition of species that humans belong to. He spoke of trade, of shared knowledge, of protection against common threats. But he also warned them of the challenges, of cultural clash, of the risk of losing their identity, of bad actors who might try to exploit them. The choice is yours, he concluded. I can activate my beacon and tell the rescue ship that an intelligent species is here. Or I can tell them I crashed on an uninhabited world and ask them to leave immediately after picking me up. I will do whatever you think is best for your people. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some voices were excited, eager to learn about the stars. Others were afraid, wanting to maintain their isolation. The debate went on for hours. Elder Mireille finally raised her hand for silence. This is too important to decide quickly. We will take time. We will think. We will discuss in our families and communities. In 3 days, we will vote. Those 3 days were intense. Taeho found himself answering questions constantly. People wanted to know everything about life beyond their world. What were other species like? How did trade work? Would they still be free to live their way? Yura came to him on the second night. They sat together on a platform overlooking the forest. The 2 moons were rising, casting silver light across the glowing trees. I have been thinking about your world, Yura said. About males and females living together, fighting together, building together. It still seems strange to me, but I have seen you work with Sora, the way your different perspectives create better solutions. Maybe that is what we lost in the Great Separation. Not just males, but the balance they brought. Every society has to find its own balance, Taeho said. There's no one right way. But closing yourself off from possibilities, from growth, from new ideas, that can be a kind of prison too. Yura nodded slowly. I will vote to open relations. Not because I think our way is wrong, but because I think we can be even better if we're willing to learn. On the 3rd day, the vote was held. Every adult member of the tribe cast their decision. It took hours to count. Taeho waited anxiously, knowing that his own future depended on this choice. Finally, Elder Mireille emerged. Her ancient face was calm, but Taeho saw a hint of smile in her silver eyes. The people have spoken, she announced. We vote to open relations with the human coalition. We vote to step out of our forest and learn about the stars. We vote for hope over fear, for growth over stagnation, for friendship over isolation. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Not everyone was happy, but most were excited. Taeho felt his own heart leap with joy, not because he could go home, but because these people he had come to care about were choosing to embrace the future. That evening, they activated the beacon. It sent out its signal into space, a call for rescue that would take days to reach human ships. But this time, Taeho added a special code to the transmission, the code that meant first contact situation. The code that would bring not just a rescue ship, but a diplomatic vessel. Sora stood beside him as they watched the beacon pulse with light. Are you happy to be going home? She asked. Yes, Taeho said honestly. But I'm also sad to leave. You've all become important to me. This place, your people, they're not just subjects in a report anymore. You're friends. Then don't think of it as leaving, Sora said with a smile. Think of it as being the bridge between our peoples. You understand both sides. Who better to help us navigate this new relationship? The rescue ship arrived 2 weeks later. It came down through the atmosphere carefully, guided by Taeho's beacon. The Lyrae warriors stood ready, but not hostile. They were curious, watchful, but not afraid. The ship landed in a clearing near the settlement. The airlock opened, and the captain stepped out. She was a middle-aged woman named Captain Jiwon, experienced in first contact situations. Her crew followed, a mix of humans and 2 other species that Taeho recognized from coalition worlds. Captain Jiwon's eyes widened when she saw the Lyrae gathered around. Then she saw Taeho standing beside Elder Mireille, and understanding crossed her face. Captain Taeho, she said formally. Your report indicated first contact. I see you were accurate. Captain Jiwan, Teho replied. Equally formal. May I introduce Elder Mirai, leader of the Lirai people. Elder, this is Captain Jiwan, of the human coalition ship, Harmony. What followed were hours of careful introductions and explanations. Teho served as translator and mediator, helping both sides understand each other. Captain Jiwan was impressed by the Lirai's biotechnology and their harmonious relationship with their forest. Mirai was fascinated by the coalition's diversity and the stories of worlds beyond her own. As the sun began to set, casting orange light across the glowing forest, an agreement was reached. The Lirai would send a delegation with the ship to see the coalition firsthand. They would learn, observe, and decide how they wanted to proceed. In return, the coalition would assign a permanent ambassador to live with the Lirai and help them navigate galactic society. Captain Jiwan looked at Teho. I assume you'll want to recommend someone for the ambassador position? Teho smiled. Actually, Captain, I'd like to volunteer myself, if the Lirai will have me, and if command approves. Elder Mirai's face showed something rare for her. Genuine emotion. We would be honored to have you stay. Teho, you have proven yourself a friend to our people many times over. Yura stepped forward. I will be part of the delegation to your coalition. I want to see these other worlds, these other peoples. I want to learn how they live together. Sora raised her hand too. As will I. Someone needs to study and document everything we learn. Ari bounced excitedly. Can I come, please? I've always wanted to see the stars. The delegation was formed. 5 Lirai would travel to coalition space. Teho would remain behind, as ambassador, but he would visit Earth regularly to report and maintain the connection between worlds. That night, the Lirai threw a celebration unlike anything Teho had seen before. Music filled the forest, played on instruments made from living wood. Dancers moved between the glowing trees, their movements telling stories of the past and hopes for the future. Food was shared freely, and for the first time, humans and Lirai ate together as equals, as friends. Teho stood on a high platform with Yura and Sora, looking out over the celebration. The human ship sat peacefully in the clearing, its lights mixing with the forest's natural glow. 2 peoples, 2 worlds, coming together. Do you think this will work? Yura asked. In the long term? I don't know, Teho admitted. There will be challenges, misunderstandings, maybe even conflicts. But I believe it's worth trying. You've taught me that different perspectives make us stronger. I think the galaxy will be better with the Lirai in it. Sora smiled. And humanity will be better for having friends who remember to respect nature and live in balance. You are skilled at many things, Teho's people, but you sometimes forget to simply be. Then we'll teach each other, Teho said. That's what friendship is. Below them, Ari was excitedly talking to some of the human crew members, already making new friends. Elder Mirai sat with Captain Jiwan, the 2 leaders finding common ground despite their vastly different backgrounds. Warriors and soldiers compared techniques. Scholars and scientists shared knowledge. Teho thought back to the day he crashed in this forest. Injured, alone, surrounded by people who saw him as a monster. He never could have imagined it would lead to this. To friendship, to partnership, to a new chapter for 2 species. The forest sang its ancient songs around them, but now those songs had new notes woven in. Human laughter mixed with Lirai voices. The sound of 2 worlds learning to harmonize. As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting their silver light across the celebration, Teho made a silent promise. He would be the best ambassador he could be. He would honor the trust both peoples had placed in him. He would help build a bridge between worlds that would last for generations. Because that was what humans did best, he realized. Not conquering or dominating, but connecting, understanding, finding common ground even in the most unlikely places, taking the fear of the unknown and transforming it into friendship. The celebration continued long into the night. And when morning came, it would mark not an ending, but a beginning. The beginning of a new era. For the Lyrae, the beginning of a beautiful partnership between species, the beginning of countless stories yet to be told. Tejo smiled as he watched Yura and Sora talking excitedly with the human crew about the journey ahead. This was HFY in its truest form. Not humanity conquering the galaxy alone, but humanity reaching out, making friends, and proving that the greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the courage to trust, to learn, and to grow together among the stars. The forest glowed around them, ancient and eternal, now witness to a new chapter in its long history. A chapter where an all-female alien tribe and a single human male proved that differences could be bridges instead of walls. That understanding could overcome fear, that friendship could grow in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes, the best adventures begin with a crash landing in an alien forest.